Welcome back to The Explainer. So I want you to imagine for a second that you're absolutely desperate for a job. You know, you're willing to take literally anything just to get by. And you finally land a gig. It's a night shift at this small, super desolate highway hotel. Sounds pretty peaceful, right? I mean, just you, the quiet night, and a few hours of incredibly easy work. But what if that peaceful isolation actually becomes a deadly trap? Today, we are unpacking a chilling true account. It's a first-hand narrative of a woman who stepped into what she totally thought was a simple clerical job, only to find herself stuck in a literal waking nightmare. We're going to trace her steps, map out the terrifying reality of her work environment, and uncover a tragic true crime history that completely turns this entire story on its head.
Okay, let's dive into this. Sometimes it feels like the world has ended and only you are alive. Now, this wasn't just some poetic thought she had months into the job. No, this was the immediate, suffocating reality she dealt with from day one. As soon as her colleagues locked up and headed home, this heavy, incredibly eerie silence would just drop over the entire hotel. And that absolute isolation began to take an extreme psychological toll on her right away. Because when you are the only waking soul in a building, surrounded by miles and miles of empty highway darkness, your mind absolutely starts to play tricks on you. The quiet isn't relaxing, it's deafening.
To really get inside her head, we need to compare what she thought she signed up for with what she actually experienced. Because on paper, the job expectations were an absolute breeze. You sit in front of a computer for 8 hours, prepare a few daily reports, set up the morning breakfast area, and then you just go home. You're basically getting paid to stay awake. But the reality? Drastically different. The second the sun went down, this paralyzing loneliness would set in. She described this awful, creeping sensation of staring out into the pitch-black night and feeling, undeniably, like unseen eyes were staring right back at her.
And what makes this isolation so uniquely terrifying is this number right here, 30. See, she wasn't actually alone out in the wilderness. The nearest living human was literally just 30 feet away, sleeping soundly in a rented hotel room. But knowing that didn't bring her any comfort at all. Actually, being so physically close to another person, yet feeling entirely cut off from the rest of the world, it just amplified her anxiety. It's this crazy psychological paradox. You're surrounded by people, yet you are completely and utterly alone in the dark.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the physical layout of the hotel itself acted like a pressure cooker for her fear. Let's map out this trap. Right in front of her desk, you've got these large, transparent front glass doors looking out into total, absolute darkness. She's sitting in a common area with a sofa and some magazines. To her left is this cramped, super claustrophobic breakfast area. To her right, there's a really uncomfortable, strangely placed door that leads out to an unlit swimming pool. And the ultimate kicker? This place is stranded on a totally desolate highway. The nearest petrol pump is a full 45-minute drive away. She is completely grounded in this isolated reality.
So during those very first few nights, her body obviously hadn't adjusted to the graveyard shift yet. She was fighting sheer exhaustion, and she outlines this terrifying sequence of events that started happening. Step 1, she's sitting at the desk, her eyes get heavy, and she kind of dozes off. Step 2, suddenly this incredibly loud bell rings right outside the main door. Step 3, she jolts awake, grabs her keys, and rushes over to the glass door, totally terrified it's a customer who's going to complain to her boss. But step 4 is where the real dread sets in. She looks through that transparent glass, and there is just absolute emptiness. Nobody is there. So she makes herself some strong coffee, waits around, and then it happens again. The bell rings, she rushes over, and there is no one. Something unseen is absolutely playing tricks on her out there in the dark.
Section 1. Shadows in the pool. A manager's request.
So after she barely survives her first few nights, her manager decides to reward her diligence with extra cleaning duties in the pool area, just to help her pass the time. But he conveniently forgot to mention the absolute nightmare of a lighting situation in there. This massive swimming pool area is illuminated by only 4 pathetic 40-watt bulbs tucked away in the corners. And where their weak little light ended, this oppressive, terrifying void of darkness began. Because of all the shadows, the boundary walls felt like they were miles and miles away. Just imagine walking into a vast, echoey room with water shimmering under barely their lighting. Not exactly a fun time.
She's in there, taking a few deep breaths to steady her nerves, and she bends down to pick up some dry leaves. And that's exactly when it happens. Reflected right there in the surface of the pool water, she sees it. A trembling shadow, blacker than coal, standing directly behind her. Her stomach just drops. She spins around so fast she nearly loses her balance and falls right into the water. But as she scans the pool deck, there is absolutely nothing, just empty air. She turns back to the water, and the reflection is totally gone. Panicking, she scrambles out of there, locks the heavy pool door behind her, and is left forever questioning her own sanity.
Section 2. The power outage, 1 month later.
So the crucial point is that the shadow was just a warning. Fast forward exactly 1 month, and a severe hurricane hits that desolate highway. The hotel loses all power. Now, normally a hotel has a backup generator, right? Well, guess what? Their generator had been broken for exactly 2 days prior. So suddenly, the psychological isolation she's been dealing with becomes an immediate, pressing physical danger. The fridge stops humming, the computer dies, the entire lobby is plunged into total graveyard silence, entirely enveloped by the roaring wind of the hurricane outside.
I really want you to put yourself right in her shoes here. What happens when the lights completely go out, the generator fails, and you are plunged into absolute suffocating darkness? Her only line of defense, her only source of comfort in that moment, was a single, old, steel-bodied torch she brought from home because her dad told her to always be prepared. But it was old, the beam was incredibly weak, and it had a terrifying tendency to just flicker off.
As she sat there trembling in the dark, she heard it. And she is completely adamant in her account about this. This was not the wind howling, and it definitely wasn't a door shutting. It was a woman groaning in pain, echoing from all the walls. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was literally echoing through the pitch-black lobby from every single direction simultaneously. And those agonizing groans, they were getting closer.
She frantically sweeps her dying flashlight around the dark lobby, desperately trying to find the source of the noise. And when the weak beam finally cuts through the darkness near the main door, she screams. Standing merely 2 feet away from her is this horrific, mangled entity. The source material paints an absolutely brutal picture. Its face looked entirely broken, bent, and distorted, like it had been crushed. Where its eyes should have been, there were only empty, black holes. It was this withered, agonizing figure, and the overwhelming stench of rot just filled the entire room. And the craziest part? When the light hit this entity, its body began to tremble violently, as if it was trying to step even closer to her.
She was entirely, helplessly trapped. The weak, flickering light from her old steel torch seemed to be literally the only physical barrier keeping this mangled thing at bay. She couldn't run, she couldn't move a single inch. She just remained completely frozen in a state of absolute paralyzing fear, holding that flashlight steady for hours, enduring the awful stench and the terror, until dawn finally broke, and the morning sun crept through the transparent glass doors. The second it was light, she bolted from the hotel without telling a soul, later calling her boss just to pretend she was sick.
Now, if you are watching this explainer, you are undoubtedly asking the exact same question I was when I first read this. After experiencing something that unbelievably traumatic, why on earth didn't she just quit immediately? Why would anyone ever return to a place where they stared true horror right in its empty black eyes? Well, the answer lies in the agonizing reality of her financial situation and the absolute traps of modern employment.
The math here was just agonizing. To make this torturous job actually count for something on her professional resume, she needed a minimum of 6 months of continuous experience. If she quit early, it would leave this massive, unexplained gap and ruin her desperately needed career prospects. And her current duration at the hotel? 4 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days. She is literally days away from crossing that finish line. She reasons with herself that she just has to hold on a little bit longer. It's a calculated risk, born entirely out of pure desperation.
Section 3. The final night. A fatal mistake.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the trap finally and permanently closes around her. It's her final stretch. Another severe storm rolls in, the power goes completely out again. But this time, that trusty steel flashlight she relied on, she accidentally left it out in her car, and it's way too dark and dangerous to go outside and get it. She had bought a spare battery for her electronics, but she absent-mindedly left it sitting on the common area sofa all the way across the pitch-black room. So now she is totally trapped behind the front desk, relying entirely on the weak, fading glow of her laptop screen to keep the creeping darkness at bay. She keeps telling herself she'll be okay as long as the laptop has power. Right? As long as there is light, the entity can't reach her. But then, right in the middle of her typing out her first-person account, a horrific notification pops up on her screen. Low battery warning. Her only source of light is dying. The darkness is literally about to swallow her whole, and that is exactly where her personal account ends.
Section 4. A tragic history revealed. The unsolved case.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because her nightmare absolutely did not happen in a vacuum. 5 years prior to our protagonist taking this job, another woman was at the hotel during a complete blackout, only she was brutally, mercilessly murdered by a member of the night shift staff. She was physically mangled and left for dead, and the killer fled into the night, never to be seen again. 4 months ago, our protagonist takes the very same night shift. And then, the morning after her laptop battery dies, her own mangled body is discovered on the lobby floor. Her entire story wasn't just a haunting, it was a terrifying prequel to her own death.
When we methodically compare the two events side by side, the similarities are just impossible to ignore. The victim 5 years ago was murdered during a blackout. Her body was severely mangled, broken, and distorted, which, if you remember, is exactly what the entity our protagonist saw in the dark looked like. The killer fled the scene. Now look at our protagonist, found dead behind the front counter during a blackout, identically mangled, broken and distorted in the exact same brutal fashion. But this time around, the attacker is completely unknown.
The police descended on the desolate highway hotel, desperately searching for answers. They scoured the lobby, they checked the transparent glass doors, they went through the pool area, but they found nothing. The killer left absolutely no trace. Zero evidence, zero clues, zero answers. The investigation hit a dead end instantly. No one knows exactly what happened to her in that pitch-black lobby after that laptop screen finally shut down.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought to consider as we wrap up. If the police found absolutely no evidence of a break-in, no DNA, and no suspects, how did she die? Was an incredibly sick human copycat stalking the hotel during the storm, recreating the brutal crime from 5 years ago perfectly? Or, when her laptop battery finally died, was she truly left alone in the dark with the rotting, mangled ghosts of the original victim? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay curious and